Okay, good morning to everybody, and thank you very much to Dr. Gerson for inviting me for this challenging occasion. The questions that Dr. Gerson put in the program for this session were two: what is blockchain, and how is blockchain changing my life, our lives? So may I say that blockchain is changing my life for several reasons, but one reason that I noticed very clearly this morning is having the possibility to see again Professor Luis Olavo Batista. Professor Luis Olavo Batista was a person that I had the pleasure to meet around 25 years ago, jointly in a program chaired by Professor Markovich of training people to be more involved in international cooperation. And among the changes that Professor Luis Olavo Batista made in my life then, I would like to point out two. The first is showing that being a lawyer and being innovative are not contradictory. You can be both a lawyer and can be a very innovative person, and that's Luis Olavo. Number two is that in spite of already at that time being involved in teaching for many years in this university, after working together and seeing how he deals with adult education, how he mobilizes the energies and the knowledge that is within the students, the participants, and create a community of learning, I changed my way of being a teacher. So thank you, Gerson, for making me here again, Professor Luis Olavo, that for many years I didn't have the pleasure to see again. I made a subtitle, Prometheus Unbound, which is obviously related to Prometheus. As you remember, Prometheus is a creature from the Greek mythology. It is a figure that is credited with the creation of humankind from clay. Sounds a bit like chapter 2 of Genesis in the Bible. And who defies the gods by stealing fire and giving it to humanity, an act that enabled progress and civilization. So Prometheus is known on one side for his intelligence and as a champion of humankind. However, the punishment of Prometheus as a consequence of the theft of the fire from Zeus, the major entity, divinity at the time, is a key theme of his mythology, and it's a popular subject of both ancient and here you see in the Louvre, you see one art, Zeus, king of the Olympian gods, sentenced the Titan to eternal, the Titan means Prometheus, to eternal torment for his transgression. The immortal Prometheus was bound to a rock, and here you see, in this sculpture, you see both chain and block. So we have block chain here. Where each day an eagle, the emblem of Zeus, was sent to feed on his liver, which would then grow back overnight to be eaten again the next day. And you have to remember that in ancient Greece, the liver was thought to be the seat of human emotions. So this is Prometheus. So on one hand, from bringing us knowledge and how to change societies, progress, science, technology, and innovation, we would call it in our terms. And on the other hand, the punishment that the bigger forces make the entity who provides us this knowledge pass through. So let me go from mythology to our specific issue, and as we are in University of São Paulo, I would like to focus blockchain in education in general, but in public education in particular, mainly in K1 to 12. Not only because this is I think everybody agrees, the key challenge of Brazil and countries in the same situation, but because this university was created 84 years ago with a reasoning, a public university, belongs to the state of São Paulo, was created with a reasoning, and one key issue in this reasoning, and that this university should be a relevant factor in improving public education from K to 12. So it is not only because we like education, but because it is a mandate of this university. Now, if we look to especially the modern solutions of how to improve large public education systems, we have basically a variety of learning management systems, LMS they are called, but they do not solve problems related to contracts and to managing the relationships amongst the stakeholders. For instance, something similar occurs with somebody who provides a knowledge content in the network, and who, for open education, public education, even for private business, let's say, which is the following. The provider of the content loses control of what happens afterward. It's something similar to what happens to an artist who puts the music available and expects to receive X dollars or reais for the music if it is played for commercial purposes, but very often doesn't see all what should come to him or to her, and even so is very, let's say, not confident that the system will work. So basically we have a situation, again repeating, where current learning management systems do not solve some of the problems related to contracts and to managing the relationships amongst the stakeholders, mainly the content providers and the rest of the ecosystem. And there are other problems in public education, for instance in Brazil, that I'll give you just one example for the sake of brevity. We believe that the development of intelligent systems based on blockchain might help the correct destination of public resources according to the legal prescriptions. Let me tell you that this is a big problem in Brazil, not only because we have, unfortunately, obviously some public administrators that are not the model of correctness that we would expect, but because we have in Brazil 5,500 municipalities, round number. Some are obviously very large, as the municipality of São Paulo, very organized, professionals, people with training, with experience, but most cities are very little, and they have difficulty in understanding all the hundreds of laws that apply, of the forms, of providing the appropriate reports, of using the money according to what is expected. And we are not here in common law, we are in civil law, so you have to operate by the book, and it's increasing a key point in Brazilian society to operate by the book. So what happens very often is that as a medium or small city doesn't follow exactly the rules in the book, so they get cut out of the system, they don't receive the funds, or they receive the funds with a delay or other problems. So this impacts negatively the educational system and the health system and other support mechanisms, public policy mechanisms that exist in Brazil. So you begin a process, a snowball negative process that is very bad. And again, we are talking not about people with bad inclinations, but we are talking about the very complicated system of management public education in a country so diverse as in Brazil, when the rules are established in Brasilia, which is obviously a different setting than most part of Brazil. So to give you a very specific and practical example, a question was posed by a municipality dealing with the reporting on the use of money for education to the accountant court in Brazil. Brazil has, and I don't know if it's English the correct expression, accountant court, which means they call themselves a court, but basically they are an advisory, let's say, arm of the legislative who looks at all the accounts and how the money that was approved by Congress is being used, and if there is some problems, they report it, and bad consequences can happen both to the municipality or to the state and also to the manager, the mayor or the governor. So a very specific and concrete actual question that was posed to this Court of Accounts. Can expenses with backpacks and school uniforms be considered as part of the 25% of the budget that must be allocated to teaching according to the Federal Constitution, Article 212? Guess what the answer was from the court? What was the answer? No. Okay, we can discuss if it should or should not be, but the fact is the understanding of the court, the accountant court, is no. And if the municipality has an idea or has not informed, they will put it in the use of the budget and there will be problems. Anyhow, obviously one can train through distant education all the managers dealing with this report, but as we have also democratic change of people, maximum every 4 years, sometimes between there are also changes, it is kind of uphill battle to believe that everything can be solved by means of good training, good manuals, etc., etc. So, again, we believe that developing intelligent systems based on blockchain might help the correct destination of public resources according to the legal prescription. However, blockchain, as we see it, is not yet a mature and stable technology. Dear Marcia made a wonderful presentation and was very correct in providing all elements for us to answer the first question. What is blockchain? What is the difference between blockchain and Bitcoin, for instance, and how it is being already adopted? It was an excellent presentation, but anyhow, we have to recognize it's not yet a mature and stable technology. It's more of an emergent technology. And as any emergent technology, it leads to polarized perceptions and behaviors. On one hand, we have zealous advocates of immediate adoption on one side, including people, obviously, with vested interests. Some are without interest, but some are just writing books and making conferences and giving consultancies. That's life. That happens in other areas too, and it's nothing bad about. But so we have to see not only what is being said, but only who is saying it. And a reluctant majority, and due to many factors, including experience with former editions of, we could call the Brave New World. So, may I, on behalf of the groups that I'll mention later that prepared this presentation, may we suggest that with regard to blockchain, it is reasonable to be in a position of constructive skepticism. So let's be skeptic, but let's be constructive. So let's try to join these two approaches. Some causes for this proposal. Well, firstly, blockchain has not yet achieved sufficient, both in number and capability, community of developers and designers that need to specify solutions. Second, investments and operational costs of general blockchain systems are still not affordable by most public educational systems. And public blockchain networks use a large amount of energy, and there are also some other risks. And so maybe private blockchain network solutions might be a first step for public educational system. Private, public. What do I mean by that? Obviously, we have to realize that during these years, many flavors of blockchain have evolved, and there are obviously a lot of similarities. Both are decentralized peer-to-peer networks. Both are maintain the replicas in sync, throwing a protocol for the synchronization, which is called consensus, and both private and public blockchain networks provide certain guarantees of the immutability of the ledger, even when some of the participants are faulty or malicious. So what is the difference between private and public network solutions? Basically, the only difference is related to who is allowed to participate in such a blockchain network. In public networks, blockchain networks, everybody is allowed, and there are incentives to have always more people participating. In private networks, only people who are invited and have been validated or by the network starter or by rules that were put in by the blockchain network starter can be allowed. So, and there are also other possibilities of access to the ledgers. So it's basically different from the public. It's a permissional network. Obviously, as in every such an environment, the issues that we know how complicated they are today of digital identity are critical. But so our understanding is that maybe to begin with, in public education, private blockchain network solutions could be a first step. And the good news is if there is interoperability between blockchains. According to CEOs of relevant players, and we have the reference here in this ecosystem, we can foresee a convergence between public and private, again, blockchain networks, and this is about to come. So what we are hoping is that Prometheus will become unbound and will become another tool for the improvement of society in general and of public education, mainly K-12 in particular. And I have at the end of this brief presentation to explain why I choose the figure, this metaphor of Prometheus, because my area is management of innovation. And there is a key book published around now 50 years ago by David Landis, who passed away not so long ago, a professor at the time at Harvard University, called The Unbound Prometheus, which deals, as the subtitle mentions, technological change and industrial development in Western Europe from 1750 to the present. This is one of the most important books to explain the economic history of the Western world, in particular of Europe, and the interplay between the evolution of technology and the evolution of the social, institutional environment, so that maybe looking at what happened in the past might also help illuminate what we can reasonably expect to happen with this one more revolution in technology. And again, this will also help to explain why we adopted this proposal of constructive skepticism. I would like to thank again Dr. Gerson. This presentation blends, I hope, what we have been discussing in the Institute of Advanced Studies of this university, which is a few meters from here, and we have two groups there directly involved with the issue of education. One focused on K-12 public education, and which obviously has a very open ear to the issues of technology. Another group more focused on the challenges of the university in the 21st century. We have also a center for technology policy management in the university, which tries to bring together the views of people from engineering, management, economics, communication, etc., law, etc. And on the other hand, of Vanzolini Foundation, which is a private foundation, not-for-profit, connected to the engineering school, which just completed 50 years last year in 2017, more or less the same time when the book Unbound Prometheus was published by Professor David Langis. And in 2000, smelling that this would be a relevant aspect of improving public education, an area was created which in Portuguese has an acronym of GTE, which means Management Technology for Education, trying to blend education, technology, and management, as the name says. And I have a deep gratitude to Tomás Rossi and to Matusalem, two of my colleagues at GTE, for helping so much to prepare these presentations, for the earlier discussions, also to Professor Edson Spina of the Polytechnic School, and obviously, again, Gerson, thank you for the invitation.